This is KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and my guest today is Grant Freeman. Grant is with the Mount Vernon Lisbon Community Theatre in the upcoming production of Twelfth Night, and you are, I should say that Grant is the director of the upcoming production of Twelfth Night. Grant, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. We'll talk a little bit about the show, which is a Shakespeare play, of course, in a few minutes, but tell me a little bit about yourself. Are you Iowa native?
Yeah, I'm originally from Mount Vernon. I born and raised here, went off to college, came back, went off for a job, came back, went off to grad school, came back.
Oh, so you're a rubber band.
Yeah, something
Iowa.
like that, yeah.
And I noted in your bio that you actually acted in the community theater in Mount Vernon when you were a kid.
Yes.
What was your first show?
That's a great question. I don't actually remember. The formative one was when I did West Side Story.
Okay.
I've never seen so many things go right while simultaneously plenty of things going wrong. It was a blast. It taught me how to become a director, really. So yeah, I love doing West Side Story. I love community theater. I've gone away. I've done professional theater. I have a master's in fine arts and theater pedagogy. But my first love is entirely community based. You can get so much more out of actors that their first profession isn't theater. Their first profession is the classics professor at Cornell, or is the graphic designer who had never acted in 10 years and says, why not give it a shot?
Talking with Grant Freeman from Mount Vernon Lisbon Community Theatre, and the upcoming production is Twelfth Night, which of course is one of Shakespeare's most famous comedies. Were you involved in helping to pick the play, or is that a selection, or is that selection committee a different group of people?
No, the selection committee is the people on the board. At the time, I wasn't on the board. I was still in graduate school, but I gave them, I teach Shakespeare. I taught Shakespeare out in Virginia, and I gave them a list of 10 Shakespearean shows I was willing to direct, and this was number 10.
Okay, what attracts you to this one in particular?
Well, I would say Twelfth Night is, it's considered his best comedy. It's probably considered his best comedy because it has both an A and B plot that are incredibly strong and incredibly independent of each other. We run into a lot of that in things like Much Ado About Nothing and As You Like It, but those plots are so dependent on each other, whereas you could almost do this show and cut out an entire plot line.
The two are more independent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you have two separate stories happening at the same time. One is just tomfoolery, but tomfoolery done at the highest level because it's so heavily based in wit. And I like anything that's heavily based in wit. And then the other one is a love story, and I think the show is based in these two twins that have been shipwrecked off the coast of Illyria. And I looked at it as, I think these two are not the ones that are shipwrecked. We all are shipwrecked in our own lives. We have these lost at sea moments, whether it's the first time you're doing a radio interview, whether it's you're going on a date, you move to a new town, anything. We all have this lost feeling. And if these two people can fall in love and have been falling in love for 400 years, then I think it gives everyone sort of hope that they can get through whatever uncomfortableness that they face in their own lives.
What is it about these works of Shakespeare that have just given them this immortal life, that we can appreciate them as much today as when they were written 400 years ago?
Well, Shakespeare himself, he wasn't a great plot. He didn't create great plots. He stole everything. Everything that he ever wrote, he took from something else. But he wrote it in such a way that there has never been another. I love people today talking about the creator of Hamilton and saying he is the modern Shakespeare. No, he's the modern creator of Hamilton. There is no modern Shakespeare. Shakespeare wrote with such a level of understanding of language that has made it taken these sort of simple plot lines. You know, Romeo and Juliet is the story of Tristan and Isolde, is the story of Troilus and Cressida, is the story. But because of his writing, he's taking these stories and and elevating them to a level that I would say, never have seen before and haven't seen since. And they're simple stories, but you can change the setting to them. You can do a few things with them, and they're stories that need to be told today. Julius Caesar is a story that is happening in modern American politics right now. Twelfth Night happens every day. Midsummer Night's Dream happens all the time, minus the fairies.
And so, with that in mind, how are you setting? Are you setting it in period or modern times or in between?
We went for steampunk.
Nice.
So it's set in the 1890s, 1900s, but sort of an indescript location and time, other than it's Illyria, but no one knows where Illyria is specifically. Obviously, we know where the original Illyria is, but this is an Illyria. And I think Twelfth Night really lends itself to that. These are two people that are shipwrecked off an island they don't know, and they have to try and fit in. Therefore, you can create just about anything. It's your own neverland of imagination. I really like steampunk because steampunk uses the idea of retrofuturism to look back at something and recreate from that. I think that's the same thing that's happening a lot of the time in a lot of Shakespeare, specifically this one, where it's about misidentities and you're trying to create something new out of something that's old.
And then the other thing, especially I think is probably a little bit challenging when you're working with volunteer actors, is how they wrap their lips around the language and how you get across the emotion and everything while still staying true to the dialogue. Has that been a challenge?
It has. I have found that the way in which we run rehearsals, we spend the first week getting used to the language, but more important, getting used to each other. I look at community theater. I look at theater in general, but community theater specifically as a family. Everyone in the cast is a member of the family. And at the end of a production, whether it succeeds, whether everyone loves it, whether all these other eccentricities that you can't count on, if you've created this family, then I've succeeded. And so from that, when you have a group of people that want to work together and want to grow together, language itself isn't that big of a deal. You could have them doing a show in Japanese because the drive is singular rather than the drive being thrown off in so many different directions. I care so much more about work ethic and who a person is rather than talent. I got very lucky with this show that I have both.
The show is Twelfth Night. It goes up July 21st, runs through the 24th for the Mount Vernon Lisbon Community Theatre. All right, before we go, favorite moment in the show so far? What sticks out?
There's a moment between Sir Toby, Fabian, and Antonio. Antonio is about to be caught by the police, and Sir Toby has a gun to him and looks at Antonio and just says, "I'll be with you anon," and runs away. And it's done so succinctly and so perfectly, and our Sir Toby's great, and he understands it really well, the comedic timing of it. Yeah, I love it.
The website, if you'd like tickets, is mvlct.com. There's also a ticket hotline number. Do you know that off the top of your head? Or, let's see, it's 319-535-2030. And if you're watching the video version, that'll be appearing on the bottom of your screen even as we speak. Grant, good luck with it. Thanks so much for coming in. It's 12th Night, weekend of July 21st at the Mount Vernon Lisbon Community Theatre. Again, mvlct.com. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.